Crafty Hour. In case you're joining us for the first time, my name is Natalie Draper, and I'm a librarian with the Richmond Public Library. Last week, we learned how to make simple patch pockets, handy for storing your hands, phone, pencils, flask, or emergency kitten. This week, we're going to take a deeper dive into pockets with the slightly more advanced Sideseam pocket. And it's more advanced because it requires you to open up part of the seam of your garment, which could potentially damage it. So if this is your first time with a seam ripper, you may want to practice first on something that you don't love before you go on and potentially destroy your dress. So, if you're ready for an adventure, let's get started. Alright, so the dress we're going to be working with is this vintage find. Has good bones, but sadly no pockets. I have this vintage dress which does have pockets, and I'm going to be using these as a template to create a pocket for this dress. Now, both of these have the waist in the same spot at the natural waist, so I can easily transfer the measurement from the bottom of this waistline to the top of the pocket from this dress to this dress, and have pockets that are basically exactly the same. Now, if I'm working with a dress, I don't know what kind of dress you'd be working with at home, but if you're working with one that does not have a clearly marked waist, if it's just maybe a shift, it's straight up and down, or you'll need some help finding exactly where to put that mark for the top of the pocket, just try the garment on, and using a string or cloth measuring tape, whatever you have around, to just kind of locate your natural waist. And it's probably an inch below your rib cage and 2 inches above your pelvis. That's about your waistline. So that pocket, again, like the pocket we did last week, is right about the top of your hip bone. So that's going to be about 2 inches below your natural waist. You'll just make a mark with your chalk or your marker at the waist, take the garment off, and make that mark so you can measure 2 inches below along the side seam on both sides. You'll want to make sure that they're nice and even across so you don't have one pocket that's higher and one pocket that's lower. So these are the supplies that you'll need for this project. A lightweight material, and this is going to be used for the pockets. Paper and pencil, and that will come in handy when we create a pattern. Your marking tools, so chalk or marker, and that is to mark on the dress where you will place your pocket. Measuring tools, we have a seam gauge and a cloth tape measure. Cutting tools, of course. Needle, thread, pin, ironing board, sewing machine if you have it, otherwise you can do this by hand. Now this part's very important. This is a seam ripper. So this is sort of a frenemy in the sewing world. You will need this to carefully remove the stitching from right and left of your dress so that you can install the pocket. going to open the side seam of the dress. You can still turn back. You can just stitch it back up if you decide not to go any further. But nothing ventured, nothing gained. So if you can see my marking here, my chalk marking is 2 inches below the waist. I'm going to tease out and cut through the stitching here. And I'm just going to do it a thread at a time. You're going to be tempted to take your seam ripper and get in there in the middle of the seam and just kind of rip up, but don't do that, because you will probably just cut right through the front of the dress, and then there is no turning back from that. This is reversible. Much better. See, now we have a dress with pockets. Be sure if you're using vintage garment that you choose one with good bones. That is, that the seams are in good shape, that the material doesn't seem to be rotten, and it doesn't have any musty odors to it. You may find that fabric that has gotten some water damage will rot, and the seams may tear easily when you're going to pull that seam out. So thanks for coming along with me on another Put a Pocket on It adventure. I hope to see you next week for another Crafty Hour.